Wonderful. Some faces.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello,
So tell me who did your homework. So who worked on something for marketing for your program? Yay, Cynthia, I see your hands. I see hands. Someone tell me what you did, what you came up with.
I created a flyer.
Awesome. Very good. With all the things that we were talking about last week.
Well, I hope it had everything. Do you want me to show you so you can tell me what I did right or wrong?
You can set up a consulting session with any of us. We'll walk through it piece by piece with you. How's that?
Sounds great.
Okay. Who else? Cynthia, you had your hand raised, right? What'd you do?
Yes. So the company that I work for already had a flyer, but I'm trying to start a nonprofit. So I made something that I think we want for our logo. And so the background is hearts. So let me back up a little bit. Background info. I'm fostering 2 of my nieces. And so we want to do blankets for foster kids so they have something to call their own. And so we did, our logo will be in Spanish, and our background to that is hearts all over the page. So that's what I worked on.
Good deal. Wonderful. Who else? Anyone else do some marketing homework last week? You're all quiet and you're all hiding from me. I see very few faces. Okay, guys, that's fine. I'm not going to put you on the spot. If you want to discuss what you did, we can certainly do that later. You can bring it up or you can message me or whatever. But right now I want to introduce you to Susie. She is our speaker tonight, and she's going to talk to you about bookkeeping, etc. So it's all yours, Susie.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Just to let you know, I'm not very good at following the chat. So maybe Hannah or Dawn, if something comes up in the chat, will you let me know? Thanks. So one day I'll get really good at this. So I'm Susie Schutz. I am co-owner of 2 companies, Apis Business Solutions, which is a bookkeeping and accounting firm, and then EL3, which is just works with entrepreneurs. So what I'd like to do tonight is I'm going to try to take the mystery out of the accounting industry and who the resources are that you have that can help you. A lot of times, doing the accounting or the bookkeeping is maybe not our best skill in the business, and so you're getting help with that or getting outsourced help with that. So what I'd like to do is kind of help you figure out who's out there to help you, and a little bit of like, how do you find them, what are you looking for, and since you're probably not an accountant by trade, that sort of, how do you manage that when you don't really know everything that they're doing? So give you some tools for that too. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Hannah, I believe everybody got a handout of that has all the slides. Yep, so you have that
classroom if anyone needs those.
Okay, so you do have those available, and you can keep those. It just kind of gives you a reminder of what I talked about and some things. And then I also gave, and we'll go over this quickly towards the end of my presentation, but a bookkeeper's checklist, because if you, again, when you're managing a process that you don't know that much about perhaps, or that you haven't done a lot. So even if you're doing your own bookkeeping, it can be a tool for you too, but it kind of gives you an idea of what things a bookkeeper you would expect them to do every month. And so you can have that in PDF, or if you are comfortable, or if you like the format in Excel, you also have the actual Excel file, so you can customize it to your company. So I'm going to start then with sharing my screen. I have to figure out that one and share. So here's my presentation, and I would say to, can you all hear me well? I don't have my, do I need to put my microphone in? No, I'm okay. All right. If it goes in and out, let me know. And I'm going to try to make the screen bigger so I can see all your faces. Anyway, so when I'm doing the presentation, I can listen to myself talk a lot. I'm okay with that. But what I would prefer is if I'm going along and if I'm introducing a new idea, something that maybe you're not real familiar with, and if you have questions, feel free to just unmute and ask questions. I don't mind the interruption. This is for you. So let me see if I can get my, there we go. Now I can get my grid bigger so I can see all the faces in case you ask questions. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is I call them accounting superheroes. And a lot of times we don't maybe equate a superhero with an accountant or a bookkeeper, but I would suggest that what they do for you or can do for you in your business is their superpowers are amazing, and they're going to, when you have really good, solid financial information, whether you're trying to make $500 a month extra or $5,000 a month, I don't care. But when you have good financial information that tells you truly what's going on in your business, then that'll help you run your company more efficiently and more profit. So let's talk about this. So really, I want you to think about what your accounting probably outsourced accounting services. Maybe you have someone in-house doing the bookkeeping, something like that, or maybe you do it yourself. But really what these people do is they should help you with abundance, security in your financial information, and really give you peace of mind. So we're going to talk about the different types of help that are out there, the different roles. And the first one, her name is Kat. And I also I'm going to use sort of visual examples of the different positions to kind of maybe help give you something and a different way to think about it, so maybe you can remember it better. So Kat is, the image that I have here is from Katherine Johnson. And if you're familiar with the movie Hidden Figures, Katherine Johnson was one of the NASA computers, and she was brilliant. And one of the things that she did is she helped make sure that we could get to the moon and back. So that was super, super important. And when you think about what those women did, they were called computers, but they did all of these incredible calculations on paper, right? No computers to help them with this. They computerized it as they went along. But so when you're thinking, the position that this represents is a CPA, which stands for Certified Public Accountant. And very oftentimes the CPA is who you hire to help you do your taxes. And maybe they can help you if you're bringing on another business owner. So maybe for some of the centers, if you have more than one owner, or you want to bring people in, investor, or if you're looking for bank funding, a bank loan, and you need someone that can maybe help put together that loan package or an offer to someone else, or if you are in a situation where you built a business and you're going to sell it to someone else. So a CPA is certified, and so there's someone that can help with that sort of very high level. So what I want you to think about is that this person is really helping you with your tax strategies. So even if you don't have a very complicated business model, you still want to have a tax strategy. So you want to make sure that you're getting that you're recording all the information that you need to get all of the business deductions that you can have. We want that. If you are working in programs where with the government or especially with the IRS, where you're getting tax credits for something that you do, then there's a lot of reporting that goes along with that, which I'm sure you all are very familiar with, a lot of reporting. But they can really help you make sure that you're getting all the tax advantages that you should get. So this is someone, sometimes it depends, but sometimes the CPA maybe has less than a bubbly personality. They're very analytical, and that's okay. That's what we want them to do. They can be very kind and lovely too. But really what you want to look for in a CPA is someone who really understands taxes and that can help explain everything to you to make sure that you're not paying more in tax than you need to, and most importantly too, that you're compliant. So that's one resource. This is generally your most expensive resource if you break it down on an hourly basis. So whenever you are working with a CPA, you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you get there. You don't show up at their office with a shoebox full of receipts. You want to be very organized because you want to pay them just to do what they do best, which is taxes. And I would say on average, a CPA probably, if you broke it down to an hourly basis, they'd probably charge anywhere from maybe $200 to $350 an hour. So think about, again, make sure you're not wasting time when you're sitting with them. A lot of times what they'll do, look for CPAs too, or tax professionals that will offer to not only do your tax return once a year, but they also want to meet with you maybe once or twice throughout the year to make sure that you're on that your tax strategy is correct and in place. If you have a real simple tax return or a simple business model, maybe you don't need to do that as much, but especially if you're in one where maybe more like a center where you've got employees and maybe you've got a building loan and you have all these, other things going, on, then look for someone that will meet with you at least once mid-year and then at the end of the year to prepare your taxes. So that's the CPA. Then this is Susie. And Susie is in the accounting industry, generally what they're called is a controller. And this is like the person who's the head of the accounting department. And they're the ones that generally, sometimes the CPA will do it, but this controller or this accountant is someone who's going to help you set up your accounting system. Even if you're smaller, in that you don't have employees, it's just you, and you're just trying to set up a system, maybe like in QuickBooks or Xero or something like that, so that you can track your financial transactions. This is the person that can help you with that. And what the controller does too is they set up all the systems. They make sure that everything is in place to make sure that there is accuracy. So they know all the processes that need to happen to have good financial information, and then they can train you or someone else in your company if need be to actually do the bookkeeping. They generally wouldn't be the person that is going to do the bookkeeping because they're at a higher level, accounting level than that. But they should know accounting. They should know about your industry. And this person, this position is not someone, again, they're not going to do all the bookkeeping. They're gonna be there to set things up. If you're trying to do budgets and projections for your business, then this is the person who could help you with that. So you think of a CPA, their focus is on tax accounting. This individual is, their focus is called managerial accounting. And what that means is that they're helping you set up more from a profit perspective and how they can help you manage the financial transactions of every day. So there's a little bit different focus there than a CPA. They should know about business tax so that they can set things up correctly. But they're really the ones to help you set up your system, and then even to sit with you and talk to you, review your financial reports with you and make sure that you understand what they're telling you about your business, and make sure that the accounting system is set up right so that those reports give you the right picture of your business. So this, and then this person, this position probably charges anywhere from maybe $95 to $150 an hour. So they're less than the CPA. But that's because they're generally not doing the tax filings for you. So they have a little bit less exposure, not as expensive. Then this is Johnny. Johnny's the bookkeeper. And the image that I'm using here, so the controller was the yoga instructor, because think about they're helping you with your core, right? And they're making sure you're in balance and making sure that you have a good foundation. Now you have Johnny, he's a race car driver. So when you think about a bookkeeper, what are some of the qualities that you need? One of them is that you want them to be fast and you want them to be accurate. So just like a race car driver, the race car driver doesn't build a car, he doesn't build the track, but they sure as heck know how to use that car. So they know how to use in the accounting world, they know how to use the accounting software that you're using, and they understand the how to get around the track. And what you're thinking of how you relate that to accounting is that there's a lot of processes that you do over and over and over again. Every month, it's the same thing over, different transactions, but the same processes. And so you want a bookkeeper that understands all those processes and can make it around that track every month with the least amount of pit stops, right? So you want them to really know what they're doing so that they don't hit bumps in the road and they don't know what to do. Now think about the bookkeeper too, that they probably don't have an accounting degree. A bookkeeper oftentimes is not the person to set up your accounting system for you because they don't know enough about accounting or even sometimes business to do that for you. That's why you want to get that accountant or the CPA to set things up. But a good bookkeeper, once the system is set up and they know the software that you're using, then they can now they're in a great place because they know that there's a place for everything and they just have to get it there for the right amount and in the right bucket. So think about that. And then there are, and the good thing about accounting is that there are a lot of processes in place to help you make sure that you did your job right, to check for accuracy. So, and we'll go over that a little bit in the bookkeeping checklist. So those are kind of the three main positions. I would say when you're outsourcing a bookkeeper, not hiring internally, but when you're paying for someone to do it from an outsourced perspective, you're probably paying anywhere from maybe $45 to $85 an hour for that person, just depending on how much knowledge they have. And for all of these, it's always best if you can find someone that understands your industry, that has experience in your industry, because that's where they can help you the most to make sure that your financial reports and everything that they're doing is really set up for how you need to think about money based on what you're doing, the child care. So that's something that I would look for too. How many of you, are there a number of you that, or if you don't mind telling me if you're doing your own bookkeeping, or if you plan to do it, or if you've hired someone to do it, or if you're not even doing it yet because you don't even know where to start. But do you have any questions on that? Like, how do you find someone to do it, or what struggles you might be having?
Right now, I have basically kind of like a controller
Okay.
that handles all that. And
Okay.
then she's going to make me the bookkeeper and the director.
Okay. And so I think that it depends on how much time you have in your day. Do you have enough time to keep it up if you're going to be the bookkeeper? But I especially when you're first starting out, if you have the time available to do it and you have someone like you have that is going to train you in how to do it right, and then can spot check your work for you to make sure you are doing it right, then sometimes it's good to do some of your own bookkeeping, because then it kind of helps you keep your eyes on what's going on. And then as your business grows, you understand the processes better. And so if you do grow to the point where you can hire someone to do that, you have a better understanding of what they need to do every day.
There's quite a few entries in the chat about people chiming in. Someone, where did it go? Flora hires a CCP. A couple people don't have one yet. Amber does her own, but would like to find someone.
Okay.
Uses a bookkeeping company that has both a controller and a bookkeeper.
Perfect.
Kendall has been wanting to, well, she wanted to ask if you could recommend anyone. It looks like she's maybe wanting to look into that. Yeah, Rachel uses a separate CPA who does the tax returns.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's very common, or I think it's common to have a CPA that does your taxes, and then another company or another individual that helps you do the bookkeeping and the accounting side of it. And I think that's good, because then you have two professionals that are kind of keeping an eye on the books, and they can kind of help each other. A lot of times too, if you have a bookkeeper, or if you're going to do the bookkeeping yourself, you always want to make sure that if you have more than one resource, so if your tax person is in a different company than your controller or your bookkeeper, you want to make sure that you treat them as a team, even though they're not from the same company or in the same office. It's super important that you encourage them to communicate with each other on your behalf. Because especially if you have a bookkeeper and they don't have as much accounting knowledge as a controller or a CPA has, you want them to feel comfortable that they can go to someone who has that knowledge, which in that case then would be the CPA, and say, gosh, they just bought this new piece of equipment. I don't know how to record it. What do I do? And so then they can make sure and talk to the CPA and get everything in the right place, so that you're always looking at an accurate picture of your business. So it's good to have that. And if you're looking for a bookkeeper, I think the SBDC has some referrals that they can give you. Is that right, Hannah?
Yeah, we have some that we can refer to. Yeah, I can send those out.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is if you're working with a tax professional, ask them, who would they recommend? Because I can guarantee you that a tax professional is only going to want to give you a recommendation to a good bookkeeper because they want their records to come to them squeaky clean and in great order. And so they work with a lot of different bookkeepers. And so sometimes that's a great way to get a referral, or maybe within yourselves, within the group, if someone has a bookkeeper that they like, or like the bookkeeping services that they can recommend, then you can help each other by giving each other recommendations.
There was another good question from Amber, kind of like in a ballpark, a good amount of time to be spending on bookkeeping daily.
So I guess it depends on how many transactions you have. So, but I would say that if you have the ability to spend a little bit of time on it each day, maybe set aside half an hour to an hour, especially, you know, once you've been trained and the system is set up, and then just see how long it takes you. But the worst thing you can do is let it build up and now have 6 months worth of stuff that you have to try to enter into your software. And for two reasons. One is that, boy, that's going to be tough. Right now, how do you find 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 hours to try to get it caught up? That's harder to fit in a work week. And then the other problem with that is that means that whole time where you don't have good records, when you're not keeping things up, you're really kind of running blind on the company. You may know how much money is in the bank at any given time, but you don't really know how it got, you know, why is it, or is it as much as it could be? You know, is my business performing as well as I thought it was? If you're keeping an eye on what's going on, at least on a monthly basis, by looking at financial reports like a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, if you look at those financial reports, then if something isn't going as you expected it to, you'll catch that right away, because you'll look at the summary of everything that's happened, and the bottom line is your profit. Did we make money that month? And if it's not performing like you thought, if that profit isn't what you thought it was, then you can catch things quicker rather than waiting until 6 months down the road and find out that you're spending too much on something in the company. So just it's too hard to say exactly how much time it will take, but I would say at least set aside half an hour to an hour every week, and then just get a feel for, is that enough? Can I get everything caught up in that period of time? And then see if when you're getting the training, ask them, what's the fastest way to do it? What are the quickest tools? Like if you're using maybe a QuickBooks software or something like that, or an industry software, I bet you there's ways to automate some of the accounting or some of the bookkeeping, and then that way you're using your time in the best way and using the functions of the software. Any other questions on that?
I think we're all good right now.
Okay, so how do you manage something that you don't know very much about? Right? Like, gosh, I don't know. So the way you do that is you have to start with defined expectations. So when you're hiring someone to do the bookkeeping or someone to do your taxes, you want to think of it that you kind of want roadmaps from them. So you want service agreements. You know, you want them to tell you what they will do for you, what their service offers. And then you want them to tell you, what's the timeline? Do they do it weekly, monthly, quarterly? If it's a CPA, are they going to meet with you once a year or twice a year? But have them tell you what it is that what kind of service they're going to provide for you. That starts there. And then there oftentimes are checklists that they can provide you of the information they need in order to do their work right. And then you can also ask them to create a checklist for you that lets you know, okay, you said you were going to do this every month, and then you can watch and make sure they did it and just check it off and go, yep, that got done, or whatever those processes are. So those are tools that you can use to manage expectations. Then you have to think about, you have like compasses for here to kind of keep you on course, is always have them provide you with reports. So a profit and loss report or an income statement, that will tell you, that summarizes how much money did you make, what were all your expenses. Then there's another report called the balance sheet, and the balance sheet tells you what's your financial position. So say, how much money do you have in the bank? Do you owe credit cards, or do you have a loan? What are those balances? So the balance sheet lets you know what's your financial position at any time, and the profit and loss tells you what your profit is and how you got there. You could, if there's any of you who where you bill your parents and then they pay you later for something, you can keep track of, is everybody current? Has everybody paid me for our services? There's reports, you can look at that. They can give you even other reports like, well, how are you doing on food costs, or if you have employees, what's my labor cost? You know, just anything to help you manage how well the company is performing. And if you, I don't care how simple your business model is to how complicated it is, I would say that you should have some sort of like monthly budget, like you would if you're running a household. You know, what kind of money do you expect to come in, and what expenses do you think you need to pay out? So if you put together that budget and that projection, and a projection means the budget is just where you say, okay, I think this is what it costs us every month. And a projection means, okay, now let's project that out for a year, and let's see, and let's make it cumulative so we can say, you can see every month how well you're performing, and then it will also total you for year to date how well you're performing. So if you do a budget or a projection, then that's something else that a good accountant or bookkeeper can put that kind of information into whatever accounting software you're using. And then you can look at, what did I think was going to happen, which was my budget or my projection, and what really did happen. And that's what really came in on the profit and loss. And that's another way for you to be strategic and to catch things. You want to catch things that are bad and fix them, and you want to catch things that are good and continue that, right? It works both ways. So I think that find out what kind of reporting is available to you from these resources, and then review the work that they do. Don't just trust it to be accurate. And what I mean by that is, if they're reconciling your bank account, so you provide them with your bank statement every month, and then they compare what the bank says happens to what your accounting system says happens. So the accounting system is where everything got reported. So did it get reported correctly? That's one thing you want to look at. And they can show you how to compare the bank statement to the reconciliation report that the software produces. But you also want to look, so when you look at a profit and loss report or an income statement, that's a summary. It says, here's all the money that you made off the different services that you provide. And then here's your expense category. How much do we spend on food? How much do we have on labor? What did we do for classroom materials? Did we have rent? Are there utilities? But it just shows you the summary of that. So you can ask them and say, I want to see the details of those accounts. And that way you can make sure that they're putting everything in the right bucket, in the right account. And that's why you can check and make sure that everything is being recorded consistently, correctly. So there's different kinds of reports and reviews. And the other part of that review is, I would say, if you're only working with the bookkeeper and a CPA, you don't really have that middle accountant controller position. Have the bookkeeper, when they're done with all their work every month, have them present to you financial statements and have them explain them to you. and make sure that you understand, and ask as many questions as you need to make sure that you understand what those reports are telling you, because that's how you find out if your business is running as well as you had hoped, right? And that's, and if you sometimes a bookkeeper, because they don't have a lot of accounting knowledge, they might be able to review those reports with you, but they maybe not, maybe they don't know enough about business too, and how businesses run, to be able to explain that to you, because they're really just putting everything where it belongs and making sure they've got everything where it belongs, but they don't really know what it means, right? And so if you're working with a bookkeeper that doesn't have good accounting knowledge and doesn't understand business, then what you might do is you want to go and ask your CPA or find a controller and ask them if they'll review the financial reports with you and help you understand them. You can also get consulting through the SBDC, and there's lots of classes and workshops that you can take to help you up your knowledge on that. So I think these are ways for you to help manage a position that you don't really understand a lot about yet.
Great, thanks, Susie. There's a quick question from Flora. She's a home provider and is wondering if she were to get an audit, how would that help her?
An audit?
Yes.
Flora, do you mind kind of explaining that a little bit more?
Yeah, I was wondering, so I'm a home provider and I do hire a CPA?
CPA?
Yeah. So if I ever have sorry, I'm in a basketball team.
It's okay.
If I ever have an audit, do they have the responsibility in providing paperwork for the IRS, or it's just me, my own record keeping?
Okay, so if you get audited by the IRS, if they're the ones that helped you prepare the tax returns that were given to the IRS, they should be able to help you explain them to the IRS too, right? And they should help you defend the information that they put on that tax return and why they put it there. But if you just provided them numbers and they didn't qualify those numbers, so they didn't make sure you were telling them the right numbers, there may not be much that they can do when it comes to proving those numbers. Then you still have to, they can guide you and help you figure out how to do that, but you'll have to come up with the proof for the IRS that all of your numbers are accurate. So I would just ask the CPA, how can they help you? But they should be able to help, at least guide you. And you want them talking to the IRS, not you, because they know the lingo, they know the language, they know how to say things right, and not confuse the IRS or make the IRS think that something is wrong when it really isn't. You just didn't know how to explain it, and they'll know how to explain it better. So that's a good point. That's why you as the business owner, it's so important for you to look at those detailed reports, and you have to own the information. You have to say, yes, I agree 100% that that's exactly what is going on in my business from a financial transaction perspective. Because if you ever get audited, you are the one that has to, ultimately, you're responsible for that. Because the CPA, if you just give them numbers, they're going to file a tax return for you based on those numbers, but they're assuming that you went through all the correct accounting processes to make sure that those numbers are accurate. And then so keep receipts to prove it if you ever need to also.
So that's for auditing, but there's also the issue of like knowing your business inside and out, right? As a protective factor for your finances, right?
Oh, first and foremost, absolutely. Yeah. All of the, I always tell people, or I ask people, how often do you file your income tax return? once a year. How many times in a day, in a week, in a month, do you make a financial decision about your business? So you want to make sure that you're running it optimally, and that you're on top of everything on the financial side of it. And then kind of the bonus is, if you're doing that, it's real easy to get your tax return prepared at the end of the year. But really, you're doing this for yourself, not for the IRS, but for you as the business owner. Good point, Dawn. Thank you. So if you're working with a CPA, they should be providing you with a checklist that says, here's all the information I need to file your taxes for you, to do them right, okay? So the one thing that you have to think about is that right now, I can tell you, because I'm just as busy, they're working 60, 70 hours a week from January 1st to April 15th. So they don't have any time for monkey business, right? They need to make sure that you're giving them accurate information so that they can file your tax return for you. And you have to give it to them in enough time that gives them enough time to do it right too. So you can't go to your, or it would be probably not a great expectation to think that I can wait until April 10th, or, depending on your tax structure, to give all my records to my CPA, and that's going to give them plenty of time. They got 5 days to get it done. They'll get that done. Well, yours and 200 other returns, and you want to give them enough time that they can really pay attention to what's going on. They're not just putting numbers in, but they're also paying attention to it. So make sure that you give them enough time to do their work. And this is on the handout for you. And this is just an example of actually the due dates for your 2021 taxes, so last year. So January 31st is already gone by, but that's when everybody had to have all the W-2s out if they had employees. And then there's also a form called the W-3, and that's what goes to the IRS, and that gives them all the copies of everybody's W-2s. If you used any contract labor, all of those, the 1099 forms you have to send to the contractors were due by January 31st. So if you haven't done that stuff, you're already late, and there's pretty big penalties for being late. The next big, another tax deadline for a lot of you is that, well, it depends. This is going to be more for people who have maybe a center and you have big pieces of equipment, or you have a lot of furniture, you have a lot of what are called fixed assets in the company. So where you've bought some pretty big stuff, equipment, that you paid a lot of money for, and you're using it over a long period of time. Depending on the county you're in, you may have to report that to the county, and then you have to pay tax on that too. Those are due by April 15th. Another one is if you're a sole proprietor, or if you're set up as a single member LLC, and you're just including your business tax return as a Schedule C as part of your personal tax return. Those are due by April 15th. Your CPA can file an extension for those, not for the W-2s and not the 1099s, but you could file an extension and say, whoops, I need more time, I'm not ready. But if you want to file on time, it's April 15th. If you are a multi-member LLC, treated as a partnership, for tax purposes, that tax return is due March 15th. If you are an S Corp or a C Corp, so that's your tax structure, those business tax returns are due by March 15th. And then if you're a nonprofit, you have until May 16th if you're running on a calendar year. So I've given you the deadlines to be on time And then I've also given you the tax form number that is used to file your business's tax return. Any questions on that? We usually have some questions on that. So do you know that just by being a LLC is only your legal structure? It's not your tax structure. Did you not know that?
We actually talk about that next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
so never mind.
Yeah.
We'll move on. Okay, so once you've talked about that and you know what it is, here's a little cheat sheet for you that will tell you what. So basically, every year W-2s and 1099s are due by the last day in January. Any of if you're going to do a Schedule C, it's just like your own personal income tax. It's always due on April 15th, right? If you are a partnership, an S Corp or a C Corp, your taxes are, that deadline is always March 15th or the closest business day to that. And then if you're a nonprofit, it really would be May 15th, but in this year, May 15th is on a Sunday, so you have until May 16th. That's the next business day. But so the days of the month always stay the same each year. All right. So when you're working with the bookkeeper.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the 1099 for contractors, we send out a form to them?
Yes, you are required to. So you have to send them a 1099 NEC, which is non-employee. And so it's NEC stands for non-employee compensation. That means I'm paying somebody as a contractor, not as an employee, because they provided a service for me. And if you have people that have provided services for you and you paid them more than $600 in a year, and it's a little more complicated than that because it depends how you paid them. But you need to look at if you paid someone, contracted them to do something for you, a service, and you paid them more than $600 in 1 year's time, you're supposed to send them a 1099, because that's the only way the IRS can help keep track of, are they reporting all of their income? So that's the form that they use for that. Instead of, because if you're an employee, you get a W-2, and that's how the IRS can verify your income. But if you're a company and you're providing contracted services, then that's why the IRS has the 1099 requirement. And it's a pretty big penalty if you get caught and you didn't do it. So if you think you did pay someone more than that, then I would talk to a tax professional and see, do you need to file that? Do you need to get those done? They'll be late now, but at least you'll get them done. And the longer they're later, the more expensive it gets.
So I have a question about that. If I hire someone to like work on my home, I'm a home childcare provider. If I'm hiring someone to work on my home, like I had someone put a roof on my deck to make an outdoor classroom. Does that need a 1099, or do they just write me a little receipt?
Well, no. So if you had the company pay for it because the business paid for it because it was for the daycare, right? And you're going to deduct that as a business expense. And if they were a contractor, and if they weren't an S Corp or a C Corp, so you have to know what their tax structure is, then yes, that's exactly a great example of you should have sent them a 1099.
Okay. All right, I'll have to figure that out.
Okay, yeah. So it's complicated. There's so many things, darn it, that we have to keep track of. And that's why you also want to make sure that you've got a good tax person that you can talk to, and someone that you can sit down with them and say, this is how I run my business. These are all the things I plan to do. And then they can help you know, are there things like a 1099, or what do I need to report? How do I report it? How do I make sure I get that deduction? What's the best thing to do? And then that way they can keep you out of hot water with the IRS and with the state, so that you can just feel confident that you're doing things correctly. And you always want to talk to someone about that before you do it, so that you understand what all that involves, right? Because you might want to, I have people that for instance, they say, well, I want to write my car off as a company expense, but there's certain things you have to follow, steps you have to take to be able to do that. And so you want to talk to a CPA and say, hey, I used my personal car to run to the, I always have to pick up supplies, or I'm running around doing stuff. How do I get a tax deduction for that? What's the best way to get a tax deduction for that? And then they'll help you make those decisions. Especially if you're running a daycare out of your own home and you're taking like the home deduction for that on the taxes, right? You have to understand that once you start doing that, then you just made whatever part of that home you're using for the daycare, you've just made that a business asset. And if you own your home and then you sell your home, then you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on this portion of the sale that included the amount that you were writing off as a business expense. So, and you can do that, and you might, it may make sense for you to do that, but they can help you strategize how to do that the right way to not get yourself in trouble with taxes, or just at least understand what tax situation you've just created for yourself. So that's why you really, 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 really want to sit down, find a good CPA, find a good tax person, and really start talking to them about your business, so that you're doing, you don't necessarily just want to use a tax service that like maybe an H&R Block, not to say H&R Block is terrible, but you want to think about, are they really tax professionals that are going to help you strategize, or is that a tax mill where they're just, give me your numbers, I'll put them in and I'll process your return and see you later, but they're not really advising you?
Let me tell you, if you let your tax advisor figure out your time space percentage for homes, I'm going to yell at you, right? Because you are supposed to provide that to your tax person. So if you're renting a home, you're going to track how much time you use, how much time you work on childcare in your home, right? Not just your business hours, but how much time did you spend mowing the lawn, mopping afterwards, putting meals together, sitting in this class, right, to attend a training, all of that stuff. That counts in your time component of that equation. And you need 2 months of documentation of that every year in case you do get audited. So keep that in mind. And then you have to do your space percentage. And so we can talk about that later, because I'm not going to hold Susie up here, but
no. And Dawn, and that, so I would say if you're working with a tax professional that works with daycare centers a lot, or in that industry, then right, I mean, you still have to know it as a business owner, because you have to keep track of it all, but hopefully they know about it too. You want someone who understands that, right?
Right, but you are the one who knows how many hours you put in.
Right.
So
right.
Whenever someone sits down and goes, "Oh yeah, my person does that for me," I'm like, No, wrong, because you are losing out on money, right? Because they're kind of probably doing about an industry average and that sort of thing, right? And you know the square footage of your home and the fact that you have items stored in that closet or in that back room, and therefore it's part of that equation. So you need to make sure to capture all of that space that's being utilized in any way for childcare and all of the time that you do, and put that together in the equation. And you need to know that number the entire year, because you need to know it for all of your bookkeeping, for all of your bill paying. You need to pay for that piece out of like that. If it's 30%, then when you go to the grocery store and you're buying paper towels, you better pay for 30% of that with your business card,
Right.
and the rest with your personal card. So you have to know it. You can't wait for April 15th to get a surprise and go, oh, okay, because you just had an entire year of expenses that you needed to apply that percentage to.
Yeah, and you're right. And if you ever get audited, then it's so much better if you can say, no, here are the receipts that are specific for the business that were paid by the business. Because what the IRS will do in an audit is they will disallow every expense they can possibly disallow. You are guilty until you prove yourself innocent with the IRS, right? You have to prove to them that they're wrong instead. So just be really, really mindful and understand what all those things are. So when you're managing, when you're looking at what a bookkeeper does, then there are all these different types of accounts that they should be reconciling. So if you should, I hope, please, that you have a separate business checking account. You really must have a separate business checking account. You should have a separate business credit card. Don't commingle business and personal. So make sure that, and then what they should be doing then is recording all the transactions that that went in and out of the bank account, and then they reconcile it to what the bank statement says happened. And that's the way you know that they captured everything, and they captured everything for the right amount. So they should be reconciling those. If you have cash on hand, you need to treat that just like it's a bank account. You got to keep track of the money, and every time you pay for something with cash, you got to have a receipt, and then you keep track of that just like a bank account in your accounting system. If you have a loan, if you that you're paying, they need to reconcile what the loan balance is every month, because part of a loan payment is interest, and part of a loan payment is principal paying the loan down. And so you want to make sure that they're keeping track of that separate, and the best way to do that is they reconcile the loan statement every month to what your accounting system says you actually owe still on the loan. If you have inventory, and I don't know that you would have a lot of inventory, hopefully not a lot of stuff that you're just waiting to use. Hopefully you're only buying things as you need them or consuming them, but have a way to know. And then especially if you have a situation where one of your parents owes you money, you want to have a way to keep track of that. That's accounts receivable. Accounts payable means that if you wait to pay all your bills till the end of the month, or maybe into the next month, you have to have a way to keep track of who you owe money to. That's accounts payable. And if you have payroll, however they're recording the payroll into your accounting system, they should look at the payroll reports, what the total is for that month and for that year to date, and they should be reconciling those payroll reports to your accounting system to make sure that everything is accurate. So there are ways that they can make sure that they're doing their job right. And then what you tell them is, I want to see the reconciliation report that was created out of the accounting system, and I want to look at my bank statement, and I want to look at the report out of the accounting, and I want to see that they match each other, so that you can make sure. That's a good way for you to know they're doing their job right. So mostly with the bookkeeper, that's the kind of thing you're looking at, is they're going to give you reconciliation reports, and then they can give you detailed, not only the summary of the profit and loss, but the detail of it. Then with that, if you're lucky enough to have that accountant or controller person, and sometimes the bookkeeper has enough knowledge to do this. Sometimes they don't. It just sort of depends on their level, or maybe the CPA can help with this, but you need somebody with accounting knowledge that and especially if you've hired a controller, then you tell them that you want to look at the details of the balance sheet. So the balance sheet again tells you what the financial position of your company is. How much money do we have and who owns it? So it's like, what are our assets? That's like cash in the bank, things that we could turn into money. What are our liabilities? That's who do we owe? What's our debt? And equity is what we as the business owner has invested into the company, and what profits are owed to us, and what profits have we paid ourselves. So they should be able to explain to you the balance sheet. They should go over the balance sheet with you, the details with you, so you know that it's right. Then the profit and loss statement is another report where they should be reviewing those with you, and not only just at the top level, remember, but at the detail level. That's how you make sure everything got in the right place. Because if you have a certain amount that you expect to pay on food, and your bookkeeper sometimes puts food in food, sometimes puts food in office supplies, sometimes puts food in classroom supplies, because you went to Costco and it was $100 and they didn't know how to split it up. They didn't pay attention, right? Then if they're not paying attention and putting everything in its right place, then if you look at what your food cost is on your profit and loss, and they haven't been careful and only put food in there and made sure all the food got in there, then you're looking at that food cost and it means nothing. It's garbage. It's not real. So that's why you have to also look at the details and make sure that if you did go to Costco or something like that, a place like that, where you can buy different kinds of things, that they're putting everything in the right place. And that is about on that. That's pretty much the end of that. So the next thing that I wanted to show you is the bookkeeper's checklist that I gave you. Do you have any questions? It's a lot to think about, but any questions on the other? So what I want you to know is there's different kinds of resources out there. They all charge a different amount depending on how difficult or how complicated the work is that they're doing for you. But there are ways for you to manage what they're doing for you by getting agreements and having checklists and looking at their work and making sure it makes sense to you. When I work with a client and I show them a financial report and they start asking me questions, I get so excited, because that tells me they're paying attention and they're noticing things and they have questions. I'm never offended if they ask me a question about the work that was done. I get really excited because that means they're taking ownership of it.
It means, like, why is this important, guys? Every dollar that you find and save, right? Where does that go? Does it go to that vendor? Because you get to decide where it goes, but every dollar that you save above what you have budgeted and have to pay out gets to go into your pocket. Like you get to keep that. That goes towards profit, and that's what's going to help you to sustain your business. So that's worth getting a little bit nerdy about.
And you should, yeah. And I have clients that when I first start working with them, they understand their business. I can tell you, they know how to run their business. They know their craft, but they don't necessarily know the business of what they do. They know how to make it happen every day, but they don't really understand the business side of it, the financial side of it. And then as I work with them and I explain things and they ask questions and we give them reports that, wow, that makes sense. And oh my, like Dawn said, I could save some money there. Or look what we did over there. That's great. And you don't have to learn accounting. You just have to learn the financial story of your business. And when it's your money, it's generally a little more interesting than if you were just going to take an accounting theory class, right? This is your money we're talking about. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to it as best you can. So I've given you this. This is the, hopefully you can all see this well. This is the checklist and this is in the Excel format. So you could go in and you could change all the names. You can make changes to this or give it to your bookkeeper and say, hey, I want you to take this and I want you to customize it to the work that you do for me. Or do you have something like this that you can give me every month so that I understand exactly what you're doing for me? And then what we do, this is saying that there's 4 weeks in a month and that some of these things, maybe you only go to the bank twice a month instead of every week. Or maybe you send out invoices to your customers or give them receipts. Maybe you do that once a month, not every week. So you can have them put in the first week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, or you can have them do the dates for you, whatever you want to do that. And then if they don't have to do it in a particular week, then what we've done is we just grade that one out. But then, so everything here, then I would expect to see a check mark. If I want them to do this for me, to record this for me every week, then each week they would put a check mark and say, yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. And then these are all the different things that they might do. So like here, maybe payroll, you only pay your employees twice a month instead of every week. So here, this lets them know when do they need to run payroll. And then this way, obviously, you're going to know whether they ran payroll or didn't run payroll because your employees will let you know real fast if they didn't. But this is where, again, it works as a tool for them too, so that they know what the expectation is. So these are like, there's a lot of steps that go into bookkeeping. So there's all the different ways that you're going to record if people owe you, how people are paying you. Did they take the money to the bank? Sometimes we have 2 bank accounts. We have like a checking account and a savings account. So we can put money into savings so we don't spend all of our tax money. Or we put money aside for a big purchase we know we want to make down the road. And if it's not in my regular checking account, I won't spend it, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So maybe you're asking them to transfer money. But so these are all the ways that money comes into the company. If you have payroll, and then you guys don't have sales tax, so that line would go away. And then again, there's all the ways you spend money. And are they keeping track of all the transactions? Then there's also the month-end procedure. So this is, they are supposed to reconcile your bank account, reconcile your credit card account. This is where it says, review the profit and loss and balance sheet to correct misclassification. Misclassification means they put something in the wrong place and they need to move it to the right bucket. So this says that you reviewed it or they've reviewed it and they believe everything is in the right place. Okay. And then if you have a software system that's not online, are they backing it up? Are they filing their paperwork? Whatever those duties are. And then you can see that these are probably just done, some of these are just done once a month, like a reconciliation, because you have to wait for the bank statement to close. But then backing up the data or filing the paperwork, that might be done weekly. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what a bookkeeping checklist might look like. And you can customize it to yours, but I'm telling you, if you have a bookkeeper, you want this. You want to have something where everybody agrees this is what they're going to do. It's how often they're going to do it. And then they're going to hand this to you and say, yes, I did this, or email it to you, or keep track of it, whatever it is. But it helps them understand what they're doing, and it helps you understand what the expectation is. So I think that's it. Are we excited about the money? It's just
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna get them excited. It's okay.
And the thing that's so good about this is that you're not alone, right? There are professionals out there that can help you. They know what they're doing, but it's still your business. It's still your money, and you have to take ownership of it and keep track of it. But there are people that can do all the work, or they can help train you to do it better. And then that way, you just know you're right.
Yeah, can you stop share, so screen share, so that we can see everyone?
Yeah.
Thank you. I like to see their faces.
Ah. I said the presentation, and I know everybody doesn't always want to have their faces, but sometimes it's like when they turn their cameras off, it's almost like you're presenting to people and everybody's got their backs towards you. You can't see what they're thinking, or if their eyes, are they glazing over? Are they, do they get it? But that's all right, because we don't always want our picture out there. But.
We get it. Okay, guys, so does anyone have questions for Susie?
I have a question.
Go for it.
And I know that a lot of people here are home-based providers, but I work for a large company, and I've worked for a smaller company in the past. And one of the things I did at the end of the day was reconcile the drawer. And so I saw in your slideshow that you had different accounts to reconcile. And so what is the difference between reconciling a bank and petty cash? And do you do that every day in a larger corporation?
It depends. So like in a restaurant or something where, although people don't pay cash so much anymore, but if you were in a business where you received a lot of cash on a daily basis and you were spending money a lot on a daily, the cash money was going in and out a lot every day, then absolutely you would reconcile that cash drawer every day. You'd say, what did we start out with at the beginning of the day? What money came in, what money went out, how much should we have left? And then you physically count all the coins, all the dollars, and you make sure that on paper, what you said cash came in and cash came out in your ending balances, that's exactly how much you have in the cash drawer. So petty cash. But if there's not a lot of people touching that money, if you're the only one touching it, right? And you don't have a lot of cash transactions coming in and out, not a lot of frequency, then maybe you could just do that once a month, or, just to make sure that you recorded everything right. So it kind of depends on how many people are touching the cash, how well you trust the individuals that touch the cash. And I would say that even if you have people that you love and adore, and you have great relationships with them, and you have all the trust in the world, mistakes could happen. And so you want to be able to catch those mistakes right away. But I would say you're not checking it to make sure they're not stealing from you, but you really are checking to make sure that everything was recorded accurately, right?
Right.
But sometimes it also catches them stealing from you. So
you're in a partnership and you don't have access to your books because the other partner does that and they don't want you looking at it, you better figure something out. Like that is not okay.
Nope. Even if, right, and I worked with I have a customer that I've had for years. And when I first started working with him, he was in a business partnership with another person. And that business partner was the one that said, I understand money. I got this. You run everything else and I'll do all the money. And they didn't do anything. There was no stealing that went on. But when we came in, because now that partner was leaving and we looked at the way the books were set up, the books were not set up accurately. So they were running on financial reports that weren't telling them the true story of their business. And so even in that case, and the gentleman that we're working with now, he's like, oh, I should have paid attention from the beginning, because then what he did is he ended up buying that partner out, but he bought him out for the wrong amount because the way the books were reporting, things weren't in the right place. And so it looked like they were doing better than they really were. So it wasn't stealing, it was just, they just didn't know what they were doing, but put too much trust in the other person. And I agree, Dawn, you always have to look. Diana, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check on how you mentioned like clocking outside hours, like mowing the lawn or mopping, whatever. Now, we can only do, I'm in a home, we can only do that if we have allocated our space of our school to our taxes. Like you can only add those other things if you've allocated that piece of your home as a business. I forgot the term you called it. I know what you were talking about.
The
my mom and I
time
talked
space
about
percentage. The time space percentage.
Thank you.
So
is that?
So you, anytime that you're in your home working on your business, that time counts, right? And so you can pick any 2 months out of the year. So figure out which months are busiest for you with your business and track those extra hours that you do on top of your regular care hours, and that'll be that portion. Diana, if you want to set up, like any of you home providers, if you want to walk through that time space percentage together, please just sign up for a consultation with me. It can even just be, I know there are hour slots. If we only take 15 minutes or 30 minutes, like that's fine. Like you don't have to spend an hour talking to me, but I can help you with all the logistics and how to figure that calculation.
But I guess my main question is, can we only count those if we allocate the business to our home, or you can count them regardless if you've allocated the piece that you're using space-wise? Like she connected it to, if you were to sell your home, then you have to allocate that certain space when you're selling it. And like when you, I don't know, maybe I was with you when she was saying it, and now I'm not like saying the right words. I just wanted to make sure. I guess my question is, you can count your hours regardless. Is that?
In your time space percentage, so that you can factor that into your deductions and stuff, and what your percentage is to pay towards bills. We'll talk a little bit. We're gonna release Susie before we get into all of that stuff.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
But
anytime I can add to the confusion, just let me know.
It's all good.
Well, I hope that was helpful for you. And you guys are so lucky that the resources that you have available right here in this class. Yep. Wow, how lucky. So thank you, Dawn and Hannah.
Thank you so much for coming and talking through this. That really challenges them to think about what professional services can support their business. And so I really appreciate you coming and sharing all of that.
Spend your time, making sure that you got the best, daycare or center that you can, but then also make sure it's doing the justice, it's giving you what you need out of it too, financially. So
absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Susie. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. do what you gotta do. If you need to stretch or something, stretch. I stood up and stretched there for a bit because I was like, I've been sitting since 7 o'clock this morning. So I'm like, oh no, like gotta, but we're gonna get into this some more. So I have some slides to share with you. As we've been going through this time, I've kind of been reworking the slides and everything that I use. And we're gonna be talking about all of this because I want to make nerds out of every single one of you when it comes to finances, okay? I know you're in this industry because you want to serve kids and you want to serve them well and you want to serve families. But the reality is, like, if you get a little bit nerdy about the finances and really seeing that work for you and watching your business on paper in those numbers, it can be actually pretty exhilarating and pretty rewarding, right? And it empowers you to make business decisions, which is a great thing. So let me share this with you. We're going to dig into some slides real quick and talk about the bookkeeping stuff, the minimizing expenses and maximizing revenue. This is a picture of your world. Like on the revenue side, especially tomorrow, right? Not just tuition, but subsidies are going to be happening, right? You guys are getting your grant payments tomorrow, which is fantastic. It's a good day. So you've got that money coming in. Revenue can also be like free professional development or anything that's saving you expenses, that sort of thing. Anything along those lines, right? You're building your quality so that you can have better subsidy rates or payments. If you can save on time for you, then that's something that's a revenue for yourself, right? Because if you save time, then it frees you up to do the things that you're passionate about in your business. And then we all know the expenses, right? Because they've been pressing in for a long time. So you've got all of those going as well. What I want you to do with your business is to stop this. I want you to plug those leaks, right? You do not want any holes in your bucket. You want to make sure that everything that you pour into it stays in it and works for you and for your business. So if you have a platform that you use, let's see here. How many of you guys use a platform at your school? Hands, something, show me. Couple people. Okay. Rachel, what do you use? Surprise.
It takes me a second to get my mouse going. Yep. We use ProCare, but actually we're in the middle of reevaluating whether that's the best system for us.
Yep.
And looking for some solutions that might help us a little bit more with the admissions side of things so that we're doing less paperwork and data entry.
Yeah. Well, and so Early Learning Ventures is a local based platform, right? There are benefits to ELV. We're going to talk about the others too, but I'm going to tell you what the benefits for Early Learning Ventures are. They did some research and it showed how much time you save annually by using their platform. So their people, anyone who's in membership with them, have saved on an annual basis about 551 hours, right? Because in their system, you do a lot of things. You have access to the food program and can enter your information straight from their platform. You have access to CCAP through their platform. You can upload your student paperwork and it will alert you if something's expired. And then licensing, it's the platform that licensing can sit at home and look at those documents, and it's less time that they have to spend in your facility, right? And so they are really a great option because they're so tied into the service delivery here in Colorado, right? And so they've got a lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of programs that are served. And so really they're saving, and they have additional resources. So they're saying they save you $22 per child. That's what the research shows from their platform. let's see here. For home providers, especially, there's Brightwheel. A lot of people use Brightwheel, right? The one thing that ELV is missing is the parent communication piece, right? It doesn't have that part of it built into their platform. And so they are in the process of doing a build out to add that functionality to it. But Brightwheel is a program that a lot of programs, both homes and centers, utilize as well. So the combination of those programs would accomplish that for you. And so,
question
uh-huh.
about the early learning ventures. So I
Yep.
use a program called Sandbox. And one of the things, they're much more expensive, I'm understanding, than early learning ventures, but I can direct debit the parents' accounts. Does early learning ventures do that, or does it like just send them an invoice and then they have to click a button to pay it? Do you know how theirs works?
You know what? I don't really work for them.
Okay.
You would have, I would say
That's what I
contact them
really
and
love
find
about
out,
it, is
right?
I don't have to nag people about paying. I
Yeah.
can they put in their bank account and I tell it to Bill and it debits it.
Yeah,
So,
and so they can, you know, Milana there can go over all of the details with you and really show you the functionality of it specifically and how that process works. I don't really run into a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the platform. So, and I talk to a lot of people. So that's why I'm pretty confident sitting there telling you about it. But I would say contact them and just ask the questions, right?
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. There's ProCare, like you were talking about, Rachel, and you're right. It's one of the most expensive ones out there, right? If you look at the platforms, there's just people are developing them left and right? So there's a lot of options out there. You need to figure out what you need from your platform and find one that really meets that need and does a good job and meets your budget too. So really research and figure out what it is you want out of it and use something. If you're not doing this, you are eating away your time, period. Okay. All right, so sources of revenue, you've got your enrollment and your rates, you've got grants and loans, federal state funding streams, and quality ratings that can benefit you through all of like CCAP and that sort of thing. Really, when you're looking at revenue considerations, you have to always be walking that balance, right? You want to make sure, like, where are you at? Right now, I know some programs are starting to fill up, and that's great news. There are other programs that are still operating at half capacity. And so walking that balance, kind of getting enough staff on staff when you have families enrolling, and keeping that balance and being able to open rooms gradually and add back to your capacity obviously has to be a priority. Usually that being at like 80 to 85% is where you're really going to start hitting profit margins generally. So you want to know your numbers, right? Weekly billing versus monthly. This is primarily for homes. Like if you are doing monthly billing for your families, you're charging them by the month instead of by the week. That's okay if you did the math and figured out what it would cost per week. But if you just said, I'm going to charge $800 a month, if you do the math and break that out on what it is per week, you're going to find that you're undervaluing your services because there are 52 weeks and every month is not the exact same length. And there's partial weeks at the end of the month and you're losing out on revenue if you're doing that. Make use of your space. If you have, especially centers, right? If you have extra space, maybe there's a yoga program, like a kids yoga program or something that needs to get started and they want to utilize that large room space that you have, motor skills space room that you have. lease it to them in the evenings if you can, right? Then you're helping them start out their business and you're generating extra revenue. If you have an amazing kitchen, and you're only using that for lunch and snacks, maybe you want a food truck to use it as a commissary in the evenings to offset some of your other costs. So just be open to those options, right? Let me see what this chat says. I have no idea, Rachel. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. Flora, you have ELV. What do you think of it? Flora, do you have ELV? You said you have ELV. What do you think of that? Okay, that's all right. Okay, revenue consideration. So you've got all of those things. Oh, I meant to kill that slide. There we go. There we go. Like, that's the hazard of revamping all of this, right? So, and again, like I said before, homes, your time space percentage matters. Here's the reality. If you are a home, you're operating a business there. So you need to do that in the same way as if you were running a Starbucks down the street, right? So if you're running that Starbucks, you get up every morning, you go to that facility, you do business, you pay your light bill, you pay your electric bill, your vendors, all of those different things, you do all of that. Then you pay yourself and you go home. And guess what? When you get home, you pay your home light bill and you you do all of those things again, right? That's why you need to know your time space percentage, because when you sit down in your home and your home business to do this stuff, you need to know what that percentage is, because you've got to be the Starbucks person, right, in your home. And so when you're looking at your electric bill, what percentage of that is going to go toward be paid by the business? Is it 30%? Whatever your time space percentage is, pay that portion with your business card, and then pay the rest with your debit card, with your personal debit card, okay? No one's going to throw a fit about you using two different cards to pay off the balance of your bills. But if you do all of that, you are keeping a separate accounting of what the business costs are and your personal costs are. So you need to break those out. That's why you need to know those numbers. So if you want more help or support around that, okay, Flora, go ahead. Flora, can you unmute? You have your hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm driving. But yes, I love early learning ventures. The people there are so helpful. I've been working with them for the last maybe 4 years, and yes, I'm sitting more with the kiddos. Everything goes through the program, the computer. When licensing comes, they just check through my paperwork, and of course to the data that I have in the computer. But I am so 100% happy with them, and I just love them. I can call them anytime during the day or email them, and they get back to me as soon as they can, and I love them.
And let me just put an extra plug in there, right? If you have early learning bench, like if you are a member at ECEA, then you're going to save at least $10 a month off of your early learning ventures membership, okay? Because they're a partner of ours. So if you're a home, if you're a home, you're paying $25 a month. Guess what? If you have an ECEA membership for a home, which is only $50 a year, then you're actually only paying $15 a month, right? I mean, so you have to look at everything. And then ELV has those kinds of partnerships and supportive relationships too, right? So they'll have vendors in their platform that they've got those types of relationships with too. And so if you work with them, then you can purchase some supplies from their vendor at a discounted rate too, right? So you're always looking, like that's what gets the nerd going, right? Like looking for opportunities to save money in all of those ways, because that's you then holding on to your money. And that's part of the point of this, right? Amber, you've got ELV. What do you think? You said you love it?
Yeah, I really like it. And I actually today just had a class. They have an app that actually has a parent portal in it now. So you can send parents pictures, you can send them updates, you can send them the
Then
daily
you got it
reports
now.
and
Good.
everything. Yeah. So it's really, they've expanded quite a bit.
Yep. And saving time is saving money too. Absolutely. Right. So utilize those supports. Okay, we're going back to this some more. So that's great that they've expanded into that. I know that they were building it and stuff, so it's glad to hear that that's in place now. So pretty exciting. This is not what you want to do with your money, right? Do not burn money. So make sure that your rates are on, that you've got the right rates going. And here's the reality for centers, right? You've had to raise the pay that you do for your employees because of everything that's been happening. That by default generally means you have to increase your rates too, right? So you need to do those calculations and make sure that any change in your environment that way, in your business that way, is offset by a change in the revenue, right? So that's why you need to be looking at those. How do you know the rates for programs around you? There's the market survey I sent out in the newsletter today. They're getting ready to do the market survey. The links in the newsletter are broken. I'll just tell you, there's something going on with Wix. I don't know what's happening with the links there. But if you go into our website, into the news area, I put the links there, so that you can access and look at what are the questions that they're asking in that market survey. And there's a feedback form. This is quick. They want feedback by Monday, right? Because they're getting ready to roll out that market survey. And anyone who doesn't take CCAP and thinks, I don't care, like it doesn't affect me, I'm going to tell you this particular market survey is going to have a dramatic impact for everybody in the industry. So we need everyone to fill this out when it comes out, okay? Because it is a piece of that cost study that they'll be doing that will determine the cost per child that they're going to pay for universal preschool. If Build Back Better or the other things come, that same tool will be what's used to determine what they're going to pay for those services too. So it's going to affect everyone. You can look on care.com and you can ask. It never hurts to ask, right? What if you can, like, we're struggling down the street from you. We've been looking at doing, ask questions and see what other providers are willing to share. Rachel?
I just wanted to share that I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is undervaluing the work that they're doing in the tuition, because it I think gives actually psychologically for families, the less expensive you are, the less value they place on the work that you're doing also. And not to say that we should be trying, spending, I guess, charging more and putting more pressure on families, but definitely making sure that your rates reflect the costs that you have and the value of what you're doing, and that you remember that you're a professional and what you do is crucial for the well-being of their children and also for the well-being of our communities. I think is really important.
Has to be a balance there, right? You have to choose your family too, right? And if you're sacrificing and having your family sacrifice to benefit everybody else, and it will reach a breaking point for you and you will not stay for long, right? And it will put you in a position where you're one accident away from leaving the industry, right? Yes. So you have to find that place and really provide a great service for your community, but also make a decent amount to support your family.
Exactly. And it's also, like you said, I mean, we've been around for 30 years, and I can tell you when we started out, I had no idea some of the expenses that would come our way. And it's not, it always gets bigger. Costs always get bigger.
Yep. And people think of profit in ownership is a bad thing in this industry, right? And the reality is, without profit, you're not able to put that fence up when someone drives through it, right? And you're not able, all of these different things that happen that are unpredictable. You have a broken water heater. Like if you don't have resources set aside to take care of that very quickly, the cleanup and the new installation very quickly, like you are going to lose serious amounts of money very quickly, and you're going to put your families out, but because you're not prepared.
Yeah, and you want to make sure part of your budget is reserves, because without reserves, your business will end unexpectedly. There will always be something that's going to come up.
Absolutely. And we've got a tool that we'll talk about here shortly. Ooh, we've got like 5 minutes to get through these, guys, because I want to send you to your groups too. Okay. So remember what I said, different counties get paid differently for CCAP rates, right? This is an example from a year back, but that I just wanted you to see the difference, like just comparing 5 counties. That's a pretty big swing there, right? So you get to decide who you have contracts with and which families you want to serve because of that. And if that means that Weld County is under pressure to pay more because not very many providers are working with them, then hey, so what, right? That benefits you. We'll take questions here in just a minute, guys. So advocate together, right? If you make choices that way, then you're doing advocacy and telling that county, like, I don't love how you're paying on that right now, right? And tell them, like, I think I want to work with some families from this other county because they're accessible to me too, and I get higher rates. And that will put pressure on them to change that. Early childhood councils can support that conversation. County commissioners are the ones who determine where councils are placed, and they also supervise the CCAP offices, so they can do a lot of work in that too. So really just think about all of that. There is a resource for the food program. If you're not in the food program, oh, I can't grab that one because I copied the slide. Hannah, that tool is in the classroom, isn't it?
For the food program?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sponsors are there. Yeah.
Perfect. So you guys can go in and actually run some numbers and see if it's beneficial for you to be there. I'm going to tell you, like, do not let emotion cloud your decisions on the food program, right? Because sometimes you think, oh, it's a hassle, or I don't really want to deal with that person who's doing that. You need to put on your business hat and think from a business perspective what that will do for your business. And that worksheet, that spreadsheet will help you to look at that. So I recommend that you all go and check that out. There is also a cash flow worksheet in the classroom that you can, this one's for homes, there's one for centers. So this is where you can be a little nerdy, right? And you can say, oh, okay, so if I collect this much on this much, like you can forecast out what you're going to make through the year and what you're going to be paying. And then you can see like where's the month where you have a little bit of extra money? Where's the month that you're gonna struggle a little bit, right? Like put all those numbers in and really look at it. If you don't have something like this for your program, I want to encourage you this week to dig into it and play with it a little bit, right? Download one of these and just really see like, how is this working out for you? You're always wanting to make sure that you're a full enrollment with full collection of fees and that it's covering all of your costs, right? So that's the iron triangle. That's what you're trying to accomplish. And we all know that infant care is more expensive. So you can look at these slides this week and really kind of pay attention to all of the costs. Like we know it's the salaries are higher because the ratios and all of those different things. But if you can, when you're really evaluating your classrooms, you can break it out classroom by classroom and figure out what's the revenue for that classroom and what are the expenses, and see if everything's in alignment, right? Because if there's a classroom that's really off on the costs because they're using too many supplies, like that's going to be apparent in that kind of comparison, right? So here's some examples of like kind of for the industry. This is all pre-COVID. I'm just saying that, right? But if you can look at it and see like where are your percentages? What percentage of your rent is from your income, right? Like what is that percentage? Is your staffing at like 50% or are you at like 38 to 42, or where are you at? Or are you at 70? If you're at 60 or 70, you're not making money and you need to adjust that. So really consider all of those percentages. So do your budget, list out every expense, list out every revenue source. Look at those percentages, compare from previous quarters. Like, are you doing well? Like every quarter, how are you doing? Is it staying consistent? Compared to last year at this time, are you doing better, the same, or worse? And did something change in your circumstances? And does something need to change? And then also think about when it comes to expenses, your toys, materials, all of that sort of stuff. A toy is only new until the child picks it up and plays with it for the first time. And then guess what? You have a used toy. So do not put a ton of pressure on yourself to always have to buy new toys, right? You can find tons of great materials out there, thrift and consignment stores, garage sales, trading with other programs, purchasing from programs that are closing. You can use loose parts, look up loose parts and see what that is and figure out how to get some free resources into your program that way. Buying in bulk is another way to handle that. There is a book called Good Eat Well on $4 a day, good and cheap. And this falls in alignment with the food program. So you could look at the recipes that they have available. This is actually online, so you can find that resource online. And it's free. Just download it and look and see what you could tweak as far as your menu goes. Buy in bulk curriculum. If you're not buying your curriculum on an annual basis and you're doing it monthly, you're paying too much. Because if you can buy it on an annual basis, it's going to save you 15-20%. Grow a garden, right? If you can grow a garden and use that food in your program, it's going to save you money and it's going to teach the kids some great things. And then the other thing is keep your staff. If you can quit having to hire new staff and keep consistent people in your program, it's going to save you money as well. So I know we cruised through that, but I want you to go to breakout rooms. So Diana and Flora, if you want to stick around and ask questions, that's fine. But I want to get everyone to breakout rooms for 10 minutes. Sorry, guys. And then we'll pull you back and wrap it up very quickly. I'm sorry that it was so short for you in there tonight. I try not to do that. And sometimes I end up sacrificing the information that I want to share. And I just decided I was going to stop doing that because I don't want you to miss out on all of those things to consider. So this week for homework, what do you think, right? Pick something, whether it's the food program spreadsheet or it's the cash flow spreadsheet or you're just going to do a list of all of your expenses and your different revenue sources and what they are and amounts or whatever. Like pick something, get into the numbers and start thinking about your business. If you don't know your time space percentage, you can sign up for a session with me and I can help support you in that because you need to know that number. Let's be proactive in our finances so that we're empowered business people. Okay. Hannah, you have something to share?
Nope, I'll send the follow-up tomorrow. But no, I don't have anything else.
Okay, guys, that's it. That's homework. If you have questions for me, stick around and I can answer real quick. Otherwise, off to a nice evening. Enjoy your night. Okay, I'll see you next week.